So, the translations are out for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 352, and from what we see in this chapter, we get the end of the Todoroki family feud. The fight comes to an end in the best way possible, and you'll see what that is right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Drew, and I'm here to do my review for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 352, titled Ultimate Move. And when it comes to this chapter of My Hero Academia, as I said in the intro, this is pretty much the end of the fight between Shoto and Dabi. We, for the most part, most likely get a definitive conclusion to this actual fight, which is amazing, but for the most part, what this chapter is about is more of the characterization, the character growth, the character development of Shoto, and how far he has gone in the story, while also seeing a very cool fight. And we'll get more to that into the review proper, but I just like to get my thoughts up on this chapter out first before I dive a little bit more into it. There is so much to love about this chapter if you really do enjoy Shoto as a character. We get a lot of just introspection of who he is and how he thought about his path going forward, and just seeing the results of his labors, the results of his drive, his motivation, his training, and it pays off in this chapter with him actually being able to do what he set out to do. So let's dive into the proper review of this chapter, which starts off and pretty much ends with more of the development, the growth, and the characterization of Shoto. The first half of this chapter is pretty much focusing on both a combination of Shoto and his development and his growth, as well as learning more about the new technique that we saw last chapter. Because Deku is worried about Shoto, fighting his own brother potentially to the death, but Shoto is able to reassure Deku that everything is going to be okay by showing off his new move, which we learned last chapter was Fire Fist Phosphorus. And how his explanation for it is pretty much him circulating both hot and cold blood, or circulating the hot heat as well as the cold throughout his body to a point where the fire that is on his chest is actually cool or cold to the touch. And how he equates this to being cold fire, which is an actual thing, by the way, but most likely than not doesn't act exactly like the Flash Fire Fist Phosphorus that is forming around his chest. And he also gives an explanation for that he has to center it in his heart, and how it's based off his freezing left side and his burning hot side being at equilibrium, pretty much having a similar temperature throughout his entire body. And how he equates this to being sort of kind of the opposite for what Endeavor wanted Shoto and wanted his children to do. Endeavor wanted his children to have both hot and cold, fire and ice, but use the ice to balance out the fire, when in reality what is happening is that the fire is in a way becoming more like ice. So it's very cool that we get to see that even though Shoto is doing something that his father kind of wanted, he's making it his own, which is something that Shoto in the series has been telling us that he needs to do. That it's not his father's power, but that it is his, and that he needs to make it his own. And we get that conclusion, or we get that idea reiterated in this chapter as we cut over to the second part and the middle part of this chapter, which is primarily action. And let me just say, the action in this chapter is amazing, mainly because we get 3 double page spreads. The first one that we see is Shoto using a new move, Freezing Impact, burning Ice Blade, and is hitting Dabi with it with full force, telling him to cool down. Ice puns. Shoto, you're great. But yeah, we do get to see a whole lot of action, and it's not just action from Shoto, we also get to see more action from Dabi. We get to see Dabi being able to tank the hits that Shoto is able to throw at him, very similarly to how Dabi was able to throw attacks at Shoto and he was able to tank them too. But we also get a new move kinda from Dabi, as we see that he's also announcing this idea that once you walk down the wrong path, there's no turning back, and how when it comes to how they use their abilities, that they're actually not alike at all, as we see that he's emitting pillars of flames from the ground so hot that it is melting the concrete, and it seems as if it hits Shoto, but luckily enough, Burnin, Kido, and Onima are there to redirect the flames away from Shoto, and is the reasoning why Shoto doesn't get burned by these pillars of flames melting the ground by Dabi. So pretty much they are out of the fight, unfortunately, but they did play a part in helping Shoto defeat Dabi, which also plays into another idea of My Hero Academia when it comes to people not needing to work on their own, and that they need to work together to defeat their enemies or to help people. And we see that in this story, and we kind of see that as well in other places in the story, which we're probably going to get to later on. And from then, we get even more just introspection with Shoto, him coming to a realization that he was not lonely going down this path or existence once he started realizing that he had friends by his side, and that they weren't behind him, they weren't moving forward, that they were always there to help him and boost him up. As we also get to see that even though he does care about his friends, he also is very thankful for what Burnin and the gang were able to do with him in this fight. So with all of this accumulation of his feelings, and how every member of Class 1A for the most part was there by his side, he always felt that he felt safe, and that they always gave him a place that he could go back to as we're getting towards the end of the chapter, where we get something that was very shocking and very amazing, and it kind of fits with the story, and it's that Shoto's also remembering the speech that was given to him by Mount Lady about how a special move is a representation of who you are and what you represent, and that it is something that is capable of showing everyone who you are. And this is very important because we get to see Shoto's final ultimate move that is pretty much the pinnacle of who he is as a character, as he launches forward at his brother, and how he tells his brother that no, there's a way for you to turn back, even if it's by force, as he begins to stop his brother with his final attack, Great Arctic Tsunami, that sends out so much ice and freezes literally not just the ground, but the trees, as well as the buildings in the surrounding area. That is so much freezing cold, to the point where it seems as if both Dabi and Shoto have been incapacitated by Shoto's own move as the chapter comes to an end. So once again, I think that this was an amazing chapter of My Hero Academia. It seems very short because of the many double page spreads that we have, but it was still an amazing fight. And most likely than not, this is going to be the end of the fight. Now, that doesn't mean that this is the end of the confrontation between Dabi, Shoto, and the Todoroki family, but at least when it comes to the actual fight, this is the end. And most likely we're going to get some type of like reunion or recollection in the next chapter, or later on when the war is more properly ended. We're probably going to have a final conversation between Dabi, Shoto, Endeavor, Fuyumi, Natsu, Rei, when probably Dabi is dead in the hospital or is about to die in the hospital. They have this moment of like reconnection. They have this moment where they accept all of their faults and that they may forgive Dabi for the actions that he has taken. And then at that moment, Dabi's hatred will eventually and hopefully die down to the point where he won't be able to use his fire, and then that will most likely than not be the moment that Dabi dies. Instead of just dying on his own and burning himself to death, he's gonna die with like his family surrounding him. That may put him a little bit at ease, showing that he has been seen, which would mean that Endeavor has to live until the very end for this moment to occur, which, you know what, I would be okay with it. But overall, I really just enjoyed this chapter. We got to see a lot of good moments from Shoto. We got to see a lot of good actions from Dabi as well as Shoto. And even with like the final part of this chapter, which just seeing just Shoto and Toya as children is just very sad and very amazing. And it's very similar to how we've seen Deku as well as Shigaraki as children. It's just a very emotional moment and a very emotional impact and gut punch to end the fight like this. Not with huge flames, but with a freezing landscape, because they both also inherited freezing aspects from their parents in the same vein as they've inherited fire from their father. But overall, really enjoyed this chapter. Thought this was a really good chapter. So let me ask, did you enjoy this chapter? Do you think that this is a good conclusion to the fight between Shoto and Dabi? Or would you have hoped that Endeavor would be a part of this fight as well? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. I would really like to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to see more content like this. I talk about My Hero Academia. I do discussions. I also cover the spoilers. So if you're interested in any of those things, subscribe to my YouTube channel. So do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!